Welcome to the deep dive. If you've ever found yourself just staring at a huge stack of legal papers, feeling that cold sense of panic, that information overload, well, that's exactly why we're here. We try to cut through all that noise and get to the stuff you actually need.
The tactical knowledge.
Exactly. And today we're doing a really focused extraction from the very dense world of employment claims. This isn't about the basics.
Yeah, got
We're
it.
talking about pure strategy. Specifically, we've been looking at sources all centered around this idea of piercing the veil.
Mm-hmm. Personal liability in employment claims.
And our mission here is pretty surgical. It's tailored for you, the learner, especially if you're facing a claim as a litigant in person.
Someone representing themselves.
Right. And when you're on your own, every single choice is critical. So we need the absolute clearest advice on, who exactly should you be suing?
That is absolutely the core challenge, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
all about accountability. And the sources we analyzed, they all really distill this down to one critical idea.
Which-
Breaking down personal liability, who did what, and why it matters. It's about looking past the big company logo,
Mm-hmm.
and finding the specific people, the specific decisions that actually caused the harm.
Okay, let's unpack this. So when someone's been wronged at work, let's say it's discrimination or harassment or whatever, the first instinct is always, I'm suing the company.
Of course.
They're the employer. They have the deep pockets. So why? Why do we even have to worry about separating the company from, say, the individual manager who did the harassing?
Well, because the legal system has built this very, very strong defense around the idea of a corporation. It's the whole concept of a corporate legal personality. Think of the company as like a legal fortress. It's got these
Yeah.
really thick outer walls.
Like shield.
It's a shield, exactly. That wall, that corporate shield, it's there to protect the shareholders' assets, but crucially, it also shields the individual employees and managers who are just, acting as part of their job.
So it's there for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. It's an economic necessity, really. It encourages people to invest and take risks. But what the sources show us is how to find the cracks in that fortress wall.
Right.
You have to identify who's truly accountable.
So it depends on the issue.
It completely depends. If it's just, I don't know, an administrative error, like your pay was late,
Mm-hmm.
that's almost always just the company's fault.
Right.
But if you're talking about actionable discrimination or personal harassment, well, that's both a failure of the company and the specific personal wrongdoing of an individual.
I see. So establishing that difference, the whole who did what thing, that's step one. And for someone doing this themselves, that sounds incredibly practical. It literally decides which names you write on the claim form.
It's fundamental. If you fail to name the individual who actively discriminated against you, you might lose really important advantages later on, even if the company is also found liable.
What kind of advantages?
Well, when you're seeking to prove personal liability, you're trying to show that the individual went beyond their normal duties. Maybe they acted with malice or committed what's called a common law tort. And many anti-discrimination laws actually expect this. They let you name the person responsible right alongside the company.
And if you don't,
If you only name the company, you limit your ability to subpoena, to question, and to hold that specific person accountable for their actions.
okay, this sets up the tactical advice we pulled, which I think is vital for anyone representing themselves. The sources are really clear that it may be better to sue the company and individuals.
Mm.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because my first reaction to that, honestly, is to push back. If you're already drowning in paperwork, managing your own case, that just sounds like making it twice as complicated, twice as expensive right from the get-go.
And that is a fundamental and an excellent question to ask.
So why do it? Why would a self-represented person take on that extra burden?
Because, yes, you're right. It does add complexity right away. You have more documents to serve, maybe more fees, and suddenly you could be facing two sets of lawyers.
Right, the companies and the managers.
Exactly. But we have to analyze this as a deeply defensive and protective strategy. The benefits, in the long run, they just far outweigh those initial drawbacks.
So it's like an insurance policy.
It is. You're paying a small price up front, the headache of the extra admin, to basically eliminate two potentially catastrophic risks down the road. It's about making sure that when you win, you actually win.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So let's tackle that first risk you mentioned, the financial safety net. This is where the strategy goes from being, merely complex to absolutely critical.
This is where it becomes a necessary defense. The number one most practical reason for naming individuals is to protect yourself against the risk of the company going into liquidation.
Becoming insolvent.
becoming insolvent, going bankrupt, whatever. Imagine this. You pursue a claim for a year. You fight tooth and nail. You manage all the documents. You sit through hearings. And finally, the tribunal says, you're right, you won. They award you significant compensation.
A huge
A
victory.
huge victory. But what if, in that year, the company ran into financial trouble and just ceased to exist?
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
if you only sued the company, your claim is suddenly worthless.
Worthless.
The entity that owes you the money is just a ghost.
Precisely. Your judgment becomes an uncollectible debt.
Yeah.
And for a litigant in person who has sacrificed so much time, energy, maybe their own money,
Right.
that's the absolute worst possible outcome.
I can't even imagine.
If you successfully establish personal liability against that manager who harassed you,
Yeah.
that judgment against them as an individual, it survives the corporate collapse.
No, that is a powerful shift. It's not just about justice anymore. It's about actually securing the outcome financially.
Yes. It means all your effort isn't just wiped out by the employer's bad luck or, bad faith dealings. It secures your route to getting paid.
It guarantees that the person who did the wrong thing is still on the hook no matter what happens to the business.
That's it. And, this advice is basically non-negotiable if you're up against a smaller company or maybe a startup in a volatile market. It's an essential safeguard.
Okay, so we've got the critical financial safeguard against liquidation. Now, let's move from that defense to offense. Let's talk about strategic leverage, because the sources also highlight the huge impact of personal liability threat as a key tactic.
Right.
How does just the threat of being personally liable change how the other side behaves?
This is all about human behavior. It's a powerful dynamic that can really help tilt the scales back toward the claimant. When you name individuals in the company, a manager, the CEO, whoever, personally in a lawsuit, the stakes change for them dramatically.
In a way that has nothing to do with whether the company is about to go bust.
Nothing at all. See, if they're just involved in their professional capacity, it's a corporate problem. The company's insurance pays the lawyers. The company's assets pay any settlement, their own personal savings, their house. None of that is at risk.
But once you name them personally, you pierce that professional shield.
You do.
And now their personal assets are potentially on the line. It stops being an abstract legal issue for the company, and it becomes their private financial risk.
Exactly right. And that psychological shift is often enough to change their entire approach to the case. The analysis and the sources suggest that the threat of having their personal assets exposed, or just having their name publicly attached to a discrimination case, it motivates them to push for an early resolution.
To make it go away quickly.
And quietly. They might suddenly be much more motivated to settle. They might lean on the company to offer a more generous settlement figure, or they might become way more cooperative with providing documents just to get themselves out of that liability spotlight.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about winning way down the line. It's about applying pressure right now. You're forcing the individuals to internalize the problem.
You are. And that often speeds up the whole process and can improve the outcome for you. You're forcing that manager to really think, what would a judgment against me personally mean for my career, for my mortgage?
Even if the company says they'll cover it.
Even then. That personal stress is an incredibly powerful tool in mediation and negotiation. It's about making the decision makers just uncomfortable enough to prioritize a quick resolution over a long, drawn-out fight.
So what does this all mean? If we summarize the core strategy for someone representing themselves, what we've really done is distill this down into two actionable pillars for suing both the company and the individuals.
That's a good way to put it.
First, you're building a financial safety net. You're protecting yourself against that catastrophic risk of the company disappearing, making sure your route to compensation stays open.
The defensive move.
And second, you're creating strategic pressure. The offensive move. You leverage the individual's fear of personal, financial, and reputational damage to push for a better, faster settlement.
And when you understand those two benefits, the really daunting task of navigating employment law starts to look more like an actionable tactical plan.
Right.
Instead of being overwhelmed, you're pinpointing accountability.
You're forcing the right people to the table.
Yes. That legal shield around corporate actors, it has weak spots. Things like malicious actions or a clear failure to prevent harm. And a claimant has to master how to use those legally justified openings.
You can't just assume the biggest name on the building is the only one responsible.
It absolutely cannot. The law recognizes that individuals can and do act outside the bounds of their corporate protection. And knowing how to frame a claim that shows that personal wrongdoing, Well, that's the difference between a judgment you can collect and a worthless piece of paper.
Okay, so building on that very idea, personal accountability versus corporate policy, here's our final provocative thought for you to consider. If you successfully use this threat of personal liability and it works, and you force a manager to offer a quick confidential settlement, have you truly achieved justice for what they did? Or have you, in a way, just bought their silence and allowed the root cause of that behavior to stay hidden, unchecked inside the company?
A very good question.
Something to think about as you navigate these critical legal waters. That's all for the Deep Dive.